Today is Christmas Day, but peace in Gaza and Israel is fragile. For over 2 months, a ceasefire has been in place between Israel and Hamas, the group governing Gaza. The truce began on October 10, 2025, offering hope that the long war might end. A truce means both sides agree to stop fighting, allowing families to feel safer, and aid to reach those in need. While violence has decreased, trust remains low, and the peace is delicate. The truce was brokered with help from countries like the United States as part of a larger peace plan. The first phase focused on stopping the fighting and exchanging prisoners and hostages taken during the October 2023 attack. Most of these exchanges have happened, but moving forward is difficult. The situation remains tense. People fear the fighting could resume at any moment. For Gazans, the truce has allowed them to search for missing family and receive some aid. For Israelis, it has meant fewer rockets and the return of loved ones. This fragile peace is precious to everyone who has suffered, but every incident threatens to shatter it. The world is watching, hoping the truce will hold and grow stronger. Living under a truce is better than war, but anxiety remains high. Every loud noise or news report brings fear and hope. The truce is a step toward peace, but the path ahead is uncertain. Both sides are wary, and the risk of renewed violence is ever present. The agreement has brought some relief, but not a full sense of security. Humanitarian aid is still limited, and many needs remain unmet. The truce is a chance to rebuild, but progress is slow. People on both sides long for normalcy. The peace is fragile, but it is a start. The next steps will determine if hope can turn into lasting peace. For now, the truce is all that stands between calm and chaos. On December 24th, a sudden explosion rocked Rafah in southern Gaza. The blast occurred near an Israeli military vehicle as soldiers dismantled tunnels and buildings used by militants. Even during the ceasefire, Israeli operations continued in some areas. The explosion, though not large, created immediate fear that the truce was ending. One Israeli officer was injured and taken to the hospital. Incidents like this are serious during a ceasefire. They can be seen as attacks and threaten the fragile peace. The Israeli military quickly secured the area and began investigating. News of the explosion spread rapidly, fueling anxiety in Gaza, Israel, and beyond. Israeli soldiers remain in parts of Gaza to prevent Hamas from rebuilding its military power, but their presence is a constant source of tension. Many Palestinians see this as a violation of the truce's spirit. Rafah is overcrowded, with many displaced people and a dire humanitarian situation. An explosion here endangers both soldiers and civilians. The blast was a harsh reminder of the war's trauma. It revived fears that had faded during the months of quiet. The incident put the entire ceasefire at risk. Both sides braced for what might come next. The world watched, hoping the truce would survive this test. In Rafah, the sense of safety was shattered once again. After the Rafah explosion, Israel responded forcefully. Prime Minister Netanyahu called it a clear attack and a violation of the ceasefire. He promised consequences, raising fears of renewed conflict. Israel blamed Hamas, saying the group had not disarmed as required by the peace plan. Israel argues that Hamas is using the truce to regroup, not to seek peace. The Israeli military rejected Hamas's explanations for the blast. For Israel, any attack on its soldiers is unacceptable, regardless of scale. This incident became a political flashpoint, especially with Netanyahu set to meet U.S. President Trump to discuss Gaza's future. Netanyahu can now argue that Hamas is not a reliable partner for peace. The accusation is about more than one explosion. It's about the future of the peace process and Israel's security. The truce's credibility is now in question. Israeli leaders see this as proof that Hamas cannot be trusted. The response to this event could shape the next phase of the conflict. The stakes are high for both sides. The world is watching to see if the ceasefire can survive. The peace process hangs in the balance. Hamas quickly denied responsibility for the Rafah explosion. Senior official Mahmoud Merdawi claimed it was likely caused by an old, unexploded bomb left from earlier fighting. Hamas argued the blast occurred in an area under Israeli control, making it unlikely their fighters planted a device. They informed mediators like Egypt and Qatar of their position to show transparency. Instead, Hamas accused Israel of daily ceasefire violations, including ongoing military operations and recent Palestinian deaths. They pointed to Israeli troops killing Palestinians near the ceasefire line just days before. Hamas also criticized Israel for restricting humanitarian aid, saying most trucks carry commercial goods, not relief. Negotiator Khalil al-Hayya warned that Israel's actions threaten the peace process. Hamas presents itself as the victim, not the aggressor. The blame game continues, deepening mistrust. The ceasefire is part of a detailed peace plan proposed by the U.S. in September 2025. Phase 1 began on October 10. Fighting stopped, hostages and prisoners were exchanged, and Israeli troops were to pull back from parts of Gaza. Most hostages have been returned, and hundreds of Palestinian prisoners released, bringing relief to many families. However, Israel's full withdrawal hasn't happened, causing major disagreement. Israel insists on staying for security. Hamas sees it as occupation. Phase 2, which hasn't started, would bring an international force to Gaza and create a new technocratic government. A key demand is for Hamas to disarm and for Israel to withdraw all troops. The biggest obstacle: Hamas wants a Palestinian state before disarming, while Israel rejects this. Both sides are stuck, having completed only the easier steps. The fundamental disagreement over Gaza's future keeps the truce fragile. The plan offers hope, but progress is slow and uncertain. Each side fears giving up too much. The next phase is critical for lasting peace. Without compromise, the plan may collapse. The world is urging both sides to move forward. The future depends on their willingness to take risks for peace. Despite the ceasefire, suffering continues in Gaza. Over 400 Palestinians have been killed since October 10, often in clashes or Israeli operations. For families, danger and fear remain daily realities. Israelis too face ongoing threats. 3 soldiers have died since the truce began. The humanitarian crisis in Gaza is severe: destroyed homes, scarce water, food, and medicine. Many accuse Israel of blocking true aid, with most trucks carrying goods for sale, not relief. Aid groups say the need far exceeds the supply, especially as winter worsens conditions. The psychological toll is immense. Years of conflict have left deep scars. Children and parents struggle to cope and rebuild. The truce offers hope, but constant tension is exhausting. People on both sides long for normalcy. Lasting peace still feels distant. The truce is a fragile lifeline, not a solution. Even as tensions rise, diplomacy continues. On the day of the Rafah explosion, Israeli officials met in Cairo to negotiate the return of a hostage's body. Despite anger and accusations, both sides keep talking. Hostages and prisoners remain central to the agreement. Egyptian mediators help maintain this crucial channel of communication. Other countries like Turkey are also involved, urging Palestinian groups to reconcile and form a stable government. The international community is deeply concerned about the truce's survival. Mediators work tirelessly to calm tensions and prevent escalation. Their efforts are often the only thing holding the ceasefire together. Every incident tests their resolve. The quiet work of diplomats is vital for peace. Without dialogue, the risk of renewed conflict grows. The world hopes these talks can keep the fragile truce alive. The Israel-Hamas conflict is part of wider Middle East tensions. Prime Minister Netanyahu cited threats from Hezbollah in Lebanon and the Iran-backed Houthis in Yemen, who attack ships in the Red Sea. Iran itself remains a major adversary, fueling instability through its allies. These regional dynamics make Gaza's situation even more volatile. A breakdown in the truce could trigger a broader conflict, drawing in groups like Hezbollah. The U.S. and other powers are working hard to prevent escalation. Past incidents have nearly destroyed the ceasefire, requiring intense diplomacy to restore calm. The Rafah explosion is another test of the truce's resilience. One spark could ignite the region. The stakes are higher than ever. The world is watching, hoping to avoid catastrophe. The Rafah explosion has brought the truce to a breaking point. If both sides escalate, full-scale war could return, ending months of relative calm. Renewed fighting would be disastrous for Gaza's civilians and for Israelis living in fear. Progress on hostages and peace would halt, replaced by violence and loss. The cost of failure is measured in lives. The truce is the only path to peace and rebuilding. Without it, talks about Gaza's future are impossible. Mediators are working urgently to save the agreement. The next decisions in Jerusalem and Gaza will shape millions of lives. The world hopes both sides choose restraint and keep the guns silent.